I find it incredibly difficult to grow muscle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Completely natural, by the way.
You learned this about me yesterday. I feel like I'm too direct sometimes, so I don't want to seem like a dick, but I would say that the weights you use, you could definitely like bump them up.
Okay.
You know, like you're leaving a lot on the. I think you're selling yourself short in terms of how much weight you do. So I think when it comes to work in the gym, it's not always about just like working hard. It's about working smart. And I think that, for example, you were doing on most of the lower body moves like 15 or 20 pound dumbbells. And if you were trying to add muscle in those areas, I think you could very realistically double that over time, you know, but slow and you wouldn't go double it tomorrow, but you would gradually, you'd go from the 20s to the 25s to the 30s to the 35s. But I think that, and I say that cautiously because I think that for most people, there's a limit to that progressive overload. Most people run into, you know, I preach progressive overload in the beginning, and that is just gradually bumping up the weights. But most people run into a point where they reach a weight where it's really hard to keep bumping it up. And if they do, they'll have form breakdown or joint pain. And then we kind of maintain that. But I think it's interesting when I say that online because people just go down with the ship that you have to be progressively overloading. And I'm like, if it worked like that, any dude that's lifted for 10 years would bench press 500 pounds. And it just doesn't work like that. You kind of reach a point with your genetics, with your body weight, with your frame that you can't really do that much more. And you're fighting tooth and nail. Now, that said, your weights yesterday when we were doing it, like you were still talking to me. So it's like there's definitely
baby weights.
Yeah. So there's, you know, like I'll challenge you to bump it up a little bit more. I think that you'd see way more change in your muscle mass if you strive to like double the weights you're doing on lower body than you would doing a million exercises in the gym.
Like, let's just say I go into the gym and I don't have anybody with me, which is me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have to be very self-motivated. And then do I just go on RPE?
For people that don't know what that means, is rate of perceived exertion, which essentially think when somebody tells you like, how hard is that out of 10? You could also call it RIR, reps in reserve, which is how many reps more could you have done. It's or you could just ask someone, how'd that feel, and get an answer, and all three of those would be the same. I tend to tell my clients that for long-term sustainability, we live in a world where the set is about 7 out of 10 hard, meaning that you could do 2 or 3 more reps.
Why do you do 7 out of 10 and not 9 out of 10?
Because I think, again, we're talking long-term sustainability. One, the research is pretty clear for increasing strength. You don't have to go to failure. You can stop a little bit shy. But 2, we mainly do it for practical reasons, that form breakdown tends to occur the closer you get to failure. And my clients all joke I'm a mom. I'm very anal about getting hurt because I think most people that are consistent worker-outers, the thing that knocks you off your goals the most is an injury. So we could get into the minutia of what's optimal all we want, but that's all water under the bridge if you get hurt and can't train for a while. So I would much rather err on the side of caution and push a little less hard per set and push a little less hard per workout and be able to do that consistently without breaking down.
How are you testing strength for your clients ongoing? Like, how can you look at somebody and say you're much stronger now than what you were 2 years ago?
First, I would say how we're testing is we almost never test, in the sense of, besides my pro athletes that have tested strength, you know, like a rep max test their whole life, pro athletes, it's kind of a different ball game because they're just like freaks of nature, and we will test. For my regular clients, we never test. I tell people to push about 7 out of 10 hard, and then we kind of gradually just bump it up. But we never test because I think unless you're like a teenager, the true like testing is where shit can go south. So we kind of just slow cook it over time. But the second part to your question, I think, is what's actually so empowering about weight training. You said, how can you know if you're getting stronger? And it's really objective. It's strength training more than most things gives you very clear feedback if you did better. If you lift a 20-pound dumbbell for 10 and then you lift it for 12, there's no denying that you got better. Or if you lifted a 20-pound dumbbell for 10 and then went to a 25-pound dumbbell and got it for 10, you got better. So the weights, it's right on the number's right on the weights, and there's really kind of no denying that. And I think that for a lot of clients, that's very empowering to be able to look and go, wow, 2 years ago, this was really hard for me, and now it's my warm-up set.